Welcome to the Richard Blackaby Leadership Podcast, helping people take their leadership to the next level. Brought to you by Blackaby Ministries International.
Welcome to the Richard Blackaby Leadership Podcast. My name is Sam, and I'm your host, and I'm joined by the man whose name is on the podcast, Richard Blackaby.
It's good to be with you again, Sam.
Always. You know, I'm seeing a lot of you these days. We were just recently...
God always gives you more than you could have asked for or hoped for.
Yeah, that wasn't the verse I was thinking of. Something else about this too shall pass. I don't know if that's... But anyways, it's good to be back doing another one of these podcasts. And before we get started, I just want to say a big thanks to all those who review the podcast and leave those nice, shiny 5-star ratings.
Yeah,
we really appreciate that. That just helps us get the word out. And help more people take their leadership to the next level.
It's always fun where I'll be somewhere in the country and someone will be at a meeting I'm speaking at, and they'll come up and say, I really enjoyed that podcast on whatever. And it's always kind of fun to drop into a town and somewhere in the U.S. and have someone come up and identify themselves as a podcast listener.
Yeah.
It's always encouraging.
Yeah, we've been hearing from even people in real life have come up to us and shared their appreciation.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't done that, and if this podcast has been helpful for you, if something you enjoyed, you get something out of, do us a quick favor, leave that 5-star review and say something nice if you can. With that being said, Richard, we're looking at one of the topics that today I think is perhaps your favorite topic, aside from Winston Churchill. Tell us what we're looking at today.
Well, I've entitled this podcast, The Power of Getting Things Done. Just getting stuff done. Ultimately, that's what leaders do. Leaders get results, but they accomplish stuff. You're not a leader just by holding a position and having an office. It's about what you do. And so this is just a very practical focus for the next few moments on getting stuff done.
Yeah, well, there's nothing, I don't think, more satisfying than scratching stuff off the to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
And, what are some ways that leaders can get things done?
Well, there's a number of things, and of course, if you're a task-oriented person, this is going to be great for you. But we task-oriented people like ourselves would love, like you said, to cross that to-do list thing. But
not everyone's task-oriented.
Right. Some are people-oriented. They love people. They love just investing in others. But I would just say this, even if you're a people person, you still have to get stuff done.
Right.
You got to get the oil changed in your car. You got to meet certain deadlines. You've got assignments. You may drift more toward people, but all the same, everybody has to get some stuff done. And so whether that's your kind of default, that you get great pleasure in that, or you have to discipline yourself to do it, everybody has to get some things done. And so I want to just talk to you about several things. So what do you do? I mean, just real practical tips. Of course, lots of ways we could approach this. But
I just do everything at once, all at the same time. Yeah. Is that not the right thing?
Well, you may need to listen in here the next few moments.
I'm all ears.
Okay. Well, first is identify, and some of this will seem simplistic, but it's amazing how many people don't do this.
Yeah.
And the first one is simply identify the tasks that need to be done. Now, we know that there's a whole bunch of tasks sometimes swirling about our heads.
Yeah.
Oh, I got that shirt I need to take to the dry cleaners. I got to, the car, the change oil light's been on for 2 weeks, and I know I need to make an appointment. And I've got this deadline.
You mean you don't change your own oil, Richard?
Well, that's a different podcast. So there's... I've got 57 emails in my in-basket. I know I've got to get around to answering those. And so there are some people that kind of dash to and fro, and when they stop and sit still for a moment, it dawns on them. Or maybe when they get in their car and they see the dash light, they remember, oh yeah, I've got to take care of that. Or they go to get dressed that next morning to go to work, and they realize, where's my favorite shirt? Oh, I got to get that to the dry cleaners before I can wear it again. And so we're periodically reminded, oh yeah, I've got to do that too. But the best way to get stuff done is to maybe start your day or end your night as you're looking to the next day, and sit down. You can do it electronically on your laptop. You can do the old-fashioned way, get a piece of paper and make a list. But take time to actually capture everything that you need to get done in the foreseeable future. And personally, I find that already somewhat freeing, just to identify, okay, so I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed here at the moment, but actually I've only got 9 things that are pressing that need to get done. Okay, 9 things. Now I can start seeing what they are, seeing how much time they're going to take. Some are going to obviously be easy to knock out. Others are going to take more time. But now I can at least start to budget my calendar and time and energy and money and start to figure out how am I going to do that. So,
and it's something that I've started doing, because that happens to me all the time when I'm like, you always remember the stuff you need to do at a time when you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
It always seems to be like, oh yeah, the oil change or whatever. It's always, you're reminded at a time when there's like, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. So something that I've started doing is just putting that in the phone. Just have a running list in my phone of stuff that has to get done. Because if I wait until I get home to like make the list, oftentimes I've already forgotten whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so when you have those cues, if you can, put them down somewhere so that when you do go back to organize, you can
and if
easily get...
if you've got your sheet of paper or you're sitting in front of your laptop, when the thought crosses your mind, just stop right then and somehow capture that. Add it to your list, but most of us, if we're not doing that, we've got these stray tasks floating around that periodically come back into our frame of reference for a few moments, and then they're lost again. And so capturing them, getting them on paper, putting them on a list is actually a large part getting you down the road to getting them accomplished. And second thing is just prioritize them. Some tasks, calling to book your dentist appointment. I mean, that takes just a couple of minutes, depending how long you're on hold. But you can knock that off pretty quickly. If you got to write a report, you've got to answer 57 emails. That may take a little bit longer. So some things they don't take very much time, but and others you're going to have to pretty well calendar a whole morning or a day to accomplish. So kind of figure all that out and prioritize it and decide. But what are the most important things to get done?
Yeah.
Of these 10 items, this one I've got to get done. It could be something like filling out your income tax return. I dread that every year. It takes me basically I can do all of it in an evening. I'll just, after work one day, I just carve everything else out of the way and say, okay, today is the day. I'm going to start sorting everything out. And I just know about how much time that's going to take. So but it's important. I don't want to file it after the due date.
Right.
I can't just put that off indefinitely. So, so you prioritize and look and see, okay, now this I've got to get done. I'll be fined if I don't get it done on time. I'll pay interest if this isn't finished, and or get fired if I don't do that job. So, okay, what are the most important things that have to get done? And typically we're drawn to the things that aren't as important.
Yeah.
Some of the less important things are usually more fun. They might be easier to do, take less effort. Might be I'll get to do it with someone that I like being around. So let me just go ahead and do that. But then the really important, crucial stuff are things that we tend to put off. And so
I wonder if we're drawn to do the easy, quick stuff, and part of my brain says, yeah, because you're like decluttering the list.
You're right.
And there's like sort of that endorphin kick of like, hey, I'm accomplishing, I'm moving forward. And that can be, do you find that hard to balance?
Yeah, and sometimes I'm
think, hey, now I've got fewer stuff and I can think about the bigger stuff.
And that's why, the third thing I say is you got to combine stuff because some things kind of go together. So, for instance, okay, I've got to call, make a doctor's appointment, dentist appointment, and I've got to answer this email. Well, okay, then I can do all of that in probably the first 10, 15 minutes of my morning. So let me just go ahead and knock these little guys out and keep it to 15 minutes. now I'm looking at this big project that's going to take the rest of the morning or maybe the rest of the day. And so, yeah, I'm kind of like that. I work better with a clean desk. And so if I've knocked off 3 or 4 very, quick to do things, now I've cleared them out of the way. I'm only looking at a list of 4 or 5 things left to do. And now I'm going to start tackling the big stuff.
Yeah.
As long as you get to the big stuff.
Right.
Sometimes, now if you just, it's like, well, okay, I've got to answer these 57 emails keep piling up here. But first, I think I'm going to check Facebook. And then now I'm going to check Twitter. And now an hour and a half's gone by and I haven't answered one email yet. Well, that kind of stuff just wastes away your time. But if you're knocking off a few short-term things, I tend to do that a bit. Like if I've got some phone calls to make, I don't want to scatter phone calls throughout the day. Let's just, okay, it's 9:30 in the morning. Let me just knock all these phone calls off.
Right.
Now they're done. I've just knocked half my list off here. Now I can bore down into the things that I've got to roll up my sleeves and really focus. And so you can combine, like errands,
Yeah.
I need to go get gas. I got to go pick this up. It's finished at the repair shop, and I've got this dry clean to drop off. Well, let me just get in the car and just do maybe right after lunch. I'm kind of digesting my food, get a little drowsy anyway. Maybe that's a good time to go just at the end of my lunch break, just do a quick runabout and get that done.
Yeah.
You kind of think about the rhythms of your day. And there are times where you don't want to maybe sit at your desk right now. It's you're going to be tired. You need a little pick-me-up. But maybe first thing in the morning, your mind's sharpest. So maybe that's when you want to write that article that you have to write. Your mind just thinking quicker. But by the afternoon, you want to do an errand or a phone call or something that perhaps will kind of wake you up more instead of, drain you. And so, combine some stuff so that it's the most efficient. You don't want to go out in your car 4 times during the day to run 4 different errands if you can combine them all into one trip and get it done. Or, well, I'll just drop this off on my way home from work today. Why make an extra trip? It's hardly out of my way if I do it then. And so the 4th thing is calendar. Some things aren't due for several weeks. And so, okay, it's important, but I've got lots of time.
Yeah.
So let me start to schedule out what needs to get done first, and then what can wait a month, and that kind of helps take some pressure off too. Especially if you're feeling overwhelmed and you've just made a list of 25 things to do. If some of those aren't due for 6 weeks, well, okay, it's on the list, but it's on the more distant list.
Right.
But so what's pressing? And then I've kind of touched on this, but a 5th thing is just avoid time wasters. You probably do have enough time to get the important things done if you don't waste your time. Anyone who tells me I don't have time to do stuff that's important is wasting time. And not every email is important, but I know people that are notorious for never answering emails. You send them a message, you never hear back from them, even when it's important. And if you confront them on it, it's like, well, I'm just swamped. Boy, do you know how many emails I get every day? Well, the fact is, I more than likely they're a time waster, because you know what, you can whip through answering emails pretty quickly. Most emails only require 1 or 2 sentences in response.
Yeah,
and you can plow through a lot of emails, and some are junk. You delete them or you file them, and before very long, you can plow through a lot of emails in a big hurry. So, but if you're scrolling Facebook or Twitter, one of the other social media outlets there, before you know it, you've wasted an hour that you could have knocked off 25 emails in at the same time.
Yeah.
So if you're going to get a lot of things done, don't waste time. Get to it, and just set a time for yourself. If you're you need to get to work by and be at your task by 9 a.m, then sometimes come in 20 minutes early and sit there in front of your laptop. Now, knock off your social media stuff or post a blog or whatever you want to do, but just schedule in a bit more time to do that. And then when it's time to start knocking off that important list of yours, you get at it right away.
So, Richard, you do other things besides this podcast.
when you give me time, when you let me off.
Surprise, surprise. One of those things is a quarterly devotional conference call in partnership with Workforce Ministries. The next one coming up is October 9th, and it's at 7:30 a.m. till 8:15 a.m. Eastern Time. Can you tell us a little bit about what to expect?
Yeah, those are fun. It's a live call that you call in, and people are calling in from all over the country. I'll do a devotional live on the phone with folks on something to do with the marketplace, how to be working with God or seeing God at work in your workplace or something related to that.
Yeah.
And people can also submit questions that I'll address. And then I always take some time. You can also submit prayer requests. And so before, at the close, I'll pray for those requests, and then we'll be on our way to work. But it's at a time where people can call in. I've got people calling in from Phoenix and California and all the way across the East Coast. And it's just kind of a great way to start a day once a quarter, where you just get an extended devotional thought. You maybe have a question answered that you really wanted me to address personally on that setting, and then you get prayed over. And so great way just to join a bunch of other believers across the country to start your day before you go to the workplace.
That's great. And we're going to leave all the information, the call-in number, the access code, all that will be found in the show notes.
Sixth thing, know your feelings. And again, it's some especially people that have trouble with to-do lists. They're dominated by their feelings. There are people, they know full well that they need to go out there and do some yard work, but they just don't feel like it. It's hot out there. It's dusty. There's bugs, and they're just tired at the end of the day. And so weeks go by, or there's just certain tasks that aren't that pleasant, and so those tend to be the ones we keep putting off and hoping they'll go away, or things will cool down, or something will happen. And that's one of the hardest things for people that never seem to get very much done. They tend to be people that are ruled by their feelings too much. And if they don't feel like it, they just can't put their mind into it and get into gear. And I just have to determine that regardless of how I feel, I'm going to get this done. So, I may pick the best time in the day. Maybe I feel better first thing in the morning. I've got more energy. Boy, I tell you, if I've got to do this task at the end of the day, I just don't have the gas to do it.
Right.
But, so I'm going to just go ahead and knock this thing off, right off the bat. Maybe it's an unpleasant phone call I've got to make. I've got to confront someone. I tend to let's get that thing out of the way. And then
you don't want that hanging over you all day.
Yeah, and I've got this weight that's off my shoulders, and now I can actually get other stuff done.
Right.
But again, know your feelings, know how they affect you, and but don't become enslaved to them. You put your feelings under your control, and you work with it, and you know what is hard for you, and so make the adjustments so you can still do the hard things anyway. Just a couple other things to say. A seventh thing is outsource. Sometimes getting things done means just taking a bit of time to outsource to other people some stuff. If you have an administrative assistant, it's then keep passing stuff on that they can do for you. So that takes a bit of organization on your part. It takes time to sit down and think, okay, is this something I could delegate to someone else?
Right.
And some people just are not even organized enough to do that, so they end up having everything on their plate. But sometimes it's worth paying someone to do something. I like doing your lawn. The last several years, I've just hired somebody. I travel a lot. I'm not home most weeks. There's at least a couple days I'm not home. So when I am home, I could go out in 98-degree weather in Atlanta and mow the grass.
But who wants to do that?
But I've got books to write. I've got blogs to write. I've got emails to answer. I've got a wife to spend time with. I've got a lot of things that I would rate more highly. I do need to get my yard mowed, or else the HOA is going to start sending me letters.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's something I've got enough money to at least pay for that, and I've got an affordable guy that can do it when it needs to be done, and I'm helping him out. And oftentimes, most of the time, when my guy is mowing my lawn, I'm sitting at my desk doing stuff that he can't do for me. I can't delegate, and so sometimes look at that list and just ask yourself: is this something I could get someone else? Maybe my wife or my husband could do this for me. Maybe I've got a teenage son that actually could do this for me, or a friend at church that could, or I could hire someone to do this, but it just needs to get done. Doesn't matter who does it, and maybe someone else even could do it better than me. And then a couple of just kind of positive things is celebrate success. I tell you what, that for task-oriented people, they get a thrill out of crossing something off the list, checking the box, saying, I get a certain emotional high over checking several things and seeing that list dwindling before my very eyes that seemed so daunting earlier. Reward yourself sometimes. I mean, when you get a big task done, you can't necessarily reward yourself every time you answer an email, but
that's how I do it.
But there's times where you can, there's certain ways, what brings you joy, and there's times where you can just say, you know what, I'm going to just pamper myself here. I'm going to,
after all,
I deserve it. Yeah. You know what, I'm just going to go get a cold brew and just kind of kick it back and relax for a moment, refresh myself, and just say, I just got a huge, I tell you what, every year when I get that income tax return information all together.
That's a weekend long celebration, I think.
Yeah, and when that's done, it's like, I deserve something, I'm going to, what can I eat? What can I do? But celebrate success. Make accomplishing tasks something that you reward yourself for in some way, because it is important, and you've just accomplished something significant. Last two things is the ninth thing. Take breaks. Sometimes we can get so just swamped with tasks that we don't come up for air. If you put in 2 hours in the morning working away, getting a report finished, getting a project worked on, you need a break now and then.
And I think for people that are really prone to distraction, like getting on social media or just talking to other people or whatever, I found that sort of batching sort of goes along with taking breaks, but so you know what, I have to do this task. I don't want to, but if I just spend 15 minutes on it, or 30 minutes on it, or an hour, and just say, this is the time that I'm working on this. And that way you can build in those breaks and not feel bad about, being distracted, but know that, okay, after that, I'm back to whatever the next task is. And it just helps sort of break up and not feel as constant just distraction and feeling like, oh, I should be doing this, but I'm
so
not.
If every time you get a social media notification, if you stop your task and you check the latest like or whatever on your social media, you'll never get much done. But if you tell yourself, okay, I've got about a 30-minute project I've got to just knock off, but when I finish that, I'm going to take 5 minutes and I'm going to check Facebook or whatever for 5 minutes, and then that'll give me a little emotional break and reprieve. Then I'm going to bore down and get on to the next task.
Right.
You can kind of schedule some more relaxing, enjoyable things and make those kind of your rewards. Like, okay, I'm not going to check any notifications until I finish reading this report or filling it out, this form out or whatever. And then you find a way to reward yourself and sort of schedule some breaks so that you can kind of just take a breath for a moment and rest and get your energy back for a second. Sometimes I know when I used to work at an office, I might do a little walkabout after getting a project or two done, and then just get up and walk.
Or do your phone calls on the walk too. Multitask.
Yeah, but move your legs, get your blood going. Just get out of that desk seat for a little bit.
Yeah.
Go outside for a minute and get some fresh air. Walk around the building or something. But then sit down and look at your list and say, okay, what's the next top priority item I want to knock off? And the last one is just measure your progress. For task-oriented people particularly, that's a reward. When you sat down this morning, you had 12 items you really needed to knock off today. And boy, it's the first coffee break, and I've already got 4 of those knocked off. I've knocked a third off already. And 2 of those items I can see are not going to be very time-consuming left to go. And so, it won't be long by lunchtime. I should be well past the halfway mark. And, that gives you some encouragement. I know people, if you let this get out of control, you just feel absolutely buried, as if there's just no hope. And I could work hard all day and I'll still have all these projects still to do. And what's the point? But there's just something about steadily working through, knocking things off the list one by one, that if you just keep to it, keep focused, it's amazing how you can plow through a lot of tasks and start knocking them off in a hurry. And so that's why I love to check things off in a real significant way. so that you can see, okay, look at I'm making progress. I'm knocking through this list here. I've got some big items already that I've taken care of. And sometimes I think just psychologically, you need to do things in a way that it gives you encouragement. Don't look at all that's left still to do, but sometimes look at what you've knocked off already, that's finished and done. And boy, I keep up at this pace, and I'll be all caught up in no time. So lots of little tricks that people use just to psychologically keep themselves going. But we live in an important day right now where, especially I think God's people and leaders need to be getting a lot done. This is a time where there's a lot of need out there. There's a lot of books that could be read, or a lot of books could be written, a lot of blogs, a lot of information for you to master, a lot of people that need your help, just a lot of stuff to do. And so identify those things that would make the world a better place, or make your job more profitable and productive if you just did them, and then get them on a list and then get after it. And you can be far more productive than you are currently.
Well, this has been super helpful, very practical. One last question before we end. I would just say, is there, for the task-oriented individual, is there a point in which you would say you're taking this too far? Like, is there a danger to any of these things?
Yeah, and of course that's a little bit more...
Because there's the pushback, a little bit from people-oriented.
Well, for someone like me, at times where you're working on into the evening, and you're not taking your vacation, and you don't take a day off, you're in now my office is in my home, so most evenings I'm drifting back down to my office and just doing a little bit more work before bedtime, whatever, and you can become consumed with tasks where they become your master instead of you being their master. And so I would say, if you find that you're never taking breaks, you're never getting rest, if you find yourself working all the time, but you always still have a long list of tasks, you may need to kind of reevaluate how you're working through that. And there is a time when, and one thing I've tried to do is, I have a lot of things I need to write, a lot of books I need to read, and I do book reviews and so on. I'm trying to always master my field. But I kind of determined for myself that if I was going to read in the evening, at a certain point in the evening, I need to stop reading for work and read more for pleasure, to read fiction and other things. Yeah. So I may still be reading, but it's at a certain point I give myself permission just to read a fun fiction book and not just another nonfiction book. And so, but I think task-oriented people do have to be a little more careful, because we tend to, you can just keep on working. And life ultimately is not just about working all the time. You're supposed to enjoy your life. Right. Life is meant to be savored. And so be sure that in the midst of all those tasks you're getting done, you're also scheduling lunch with your spouse and exercise and just reading a good book, doing something enjoyable for yourself. Enjoy your life even while you're getting a lot done.
And I think the beauty of some of this stuff is, once you find that balance, it actually makes life more enjoyable, because you have sort of your box for getting things done, and you've been able to organize and prioritize, and it makes the time that you do take off, I just think, that much more enjoyable.
Yeah. And just know your rhythms. You got to know your energy level, your pace, when you're most productive. If it's in the mornings, then maybe in the mornings you kind of you lean a little heavier into getting the tasks done. Maybe in the later afternoon, you got to kind of make it more enjoyable, wrap up sort of stuff. But find your rhythm. And so that you're not just working hard, laboring away all the time, but that you've worked in some breaks, some things that restore you, but then also allow you to be very productive throughout the day as well.
Good. Well, let's leave it there. Hey, like we said at the beginning of the show, it really means a lot to us if you would share this with your friends, if you would leave us a review, leave us that rating. That means a lot. Yeah. We really appreciate it. And tell a friend.
We do. It's very encouraging. We certainly appreciate it.